welcome to episode number 17 of the Introvert Biz Growth Podcast, the show where I talk to introverts who grow their business and make a difference. I'm Santacroce and thrilled that you're spending this time with me today. Today it's just me again, and in this shorter episode, I'd like to talk about two isms. The first one is materialism, and the second one is minimalism. This topic came up in a conversation with my husband because we noticed that we are at an age, I'm 40, my husband is 45, where one is no longer struggling to survive, but has a steady income to pay the basics and often some extra cash to spend. So I've never been a big spender myself. I grew up in a middle-class family, and early on, I think about 13 or 14, my dad taught me how to manage my own budget. I had to keep my own books, so to speak. I remember receiving 100 francs, Swiss francs, which is about $100. And with that, I had to buy my own clothes and anything else a teenager back then desired. Of course, that didn't include meals, but any other junk food or candy that I wanted, I had to pay myself, and I had to keep books. I had to put in what I received, the pocket money, so the $100 every month, and then I had to, in the other column, put in what I spent. So again, I learned early on to value money, and have always been an underspender. And today, my husband and I often remind ourselves, let's not be cheap. When we buy something, we're like always trying to get the best deal, and sometimes it's good to remind ourselves, okay, for this one, let's not be cheap, because sometimes we just pay later on because we ended up buying not good quality, and then you have to replace it or repair it. So we always like to remind ourselves to not be cheap. But to get back to the discussion I had with my husband, we noticed that when people are in their 40s or 50s, there's usually two types of behaviors. You have those who enjoy materialistic things. You have the typical 40s midlife crisis of a guy who buys himself a Porsche or some other nice expensive car. Or you have people buying expensive watches, especially in Switzerland. We're big fans of Rolexes and whatever other expensive designer watches. Or the ladies might buy these really expensive Louis Vuitton handbags. There's lots of things you can spend your money on. And then you have those who prefer to spend their money on experiences, like vacations or weekend trips or concerts, or what else? Anything that involves an experience. So it could be a trip to Disneyland with the family, things like that. And what I'd like to explore in this episode is whether there is a connection between being an introvert and non-materialism. Because what we notice is that the only couple we hang out with that clearly enjoys materialistic things are both strong extroverts. So they take pleasure in showing off their new toys, possessions, and achievements. And they post pictures on Facebook, and it almost seems like they need to share their latest purchases with others in order to feel confirmed in their choices and kind of give them a boost when others congratulate them. Where our introverted friends don't show the same behavior. It would, for example, I know for me that it would never occur to me to show off anything I bought, a pair of shoes or a car. Of course, I would also not buy the car. That would be worth showing off, because to me, a car just needs to drive. It needs to take me from place A to place B. So I often get the remarks from my 10-year-old. He says, I'm kind of embarrassed to have my friends drive with me. Could you at least clean the car? So, sometimes that's obviously kids are maybe still more attached to materialistic things, I think, especially nowadays. They grow up in this era of materialism. And so it's all about who has the better cell phone, whose dad has the better car. But then again, I think that's always been a little bit like that. So don't think that it has anything to do with introvert being an introvert kid or not. I'm not sure. I wanted to look at my own spending and kind of see what I spend money on. And maybe that gives you some ideas to kind of analyze what you like to spend money on. So for me, it's first of all, it's learning. I love learning. Any kind of course that keeps me growing is something I love investing in. Right now, I'm learning Italian, so I'm taking lessons with an Italian teacher based in Sicily, and we do our sessions via Skype. So I love that, and yeah, I'm not being cheap when I invest in courses. I also work with a business coach, and I've recently signed up for a marketing retreat in Tuscany in April, which I'm really looking forward to. And yeah, whenever there's an online workshop that I really think that will help me either in life or business. So right now I'm a part of a 8-week immersion about a book that just came out by Jonathan Fields, who also has a podcast. It's all about living a good life. So yeah, these are the kinds of things that I like to spend money on. Then the second one would be adventures and trips with the family. So I love traveling, and we go on trips with the family at least 3 to 4 times per year. Now that we have our place in Sicily, we're often there, and sometimes I go along with the kids just to experience the different culture, see the ocean, and speak Italian, practice my Italian. So even if, yes, of course, we had to buy the house, we had to invest in the house, but to me, what excites me is not the idea of owning a house, but the idea of having access to almost like a parallel life, where the life where I'm the Italian Sarah, not the Swiss Sarah. So yeah, I like adventures and trips in different cultures. Then some other things I like to spend my money on is health. For example, I do regular acupuncture. I'm seeing a kinesiologist. I go to a naturopath, and sometimes I offer myself a massage. So those health-related, self-care-related things. Then, in terms of business, for example, any kind of new tool that helps me grow my business, any website improvement, add-ons, those kind of things. Events, business and personal, so conferences, for example, TEDx. I like to go to TEDx if it's happening in town. Concerts, more on the personal level, and probably the one materialistic thing that I enjoy spending money on is shoes. So I have a lot of shoes, and yeah, that's kind of my thing where I like to spend money on, and I like to have all kinds of different shoes, which is really weird actually because I work from home, so I don't even get to show off my shoes. I don't wear them very often because I don't have to necessarily go out every day. But there you go. That's the one thing I like to spend money on. So if we think about how extroverts get their energy and maybe also their confirmation from others, at least to me, this makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because if you think about, a team, usually an extrovert always needs to get confirmation from other people about their decisions or their ideas. Where a lot of the introverts I talk to on this podcast, they work from home, they work alone, they don't have a team. And they're totally fine. They get their motivation from within, and they don't need the confirmation from others all the time to get them, motivated and going. So I think I really do see a parallel here, and I think it's kind of the same with this materialism. Is that we don't necessarily enjoy materialistic things in the same way because we don't have this need to show off things to others and get their confirmation. So, yeah, question to you. Do you enjoy material things or do you prefer experiences? And if it is experiences, are there things that you could maybe get rid of or donate to live a simpler life? Which brings me kind of to another topic, and the second one that I mentioned in the intro, and that's materialism. So that's another topic that has been on my mind these days. And I've listened to a podcast with Joshua Fields Milburn, who's the creator of a documentary called Minimalism, a documentary about the important things in life. And I haven't seen it yet, but it's sitting in our movie queue. And but I've really enjoyed that podcast with Joshua Fields Milburn. It really hit home. And what the message is that more things don't make us more happy. So I highly recommend you watch at least a trailer at minimalismfilm.com. And finally, I want to thank Andy Mort again for our conversation on episode 14. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, I highly recommend you download it or listen to it. During our chat, he brought up this idea of an upper enough, a limit of freedom, really, to me. We all know that there needs to be a lower enough so we can pay the bills, but the idea of an upper enough really resonated with me. And it's kind of the first time I heard it, because everybody else on the internet always says, you can do more, you can scale, you can go bigger and bigger. And there's these sites that I think Neil Patel has it, and Pat Flint maybe as well, where it shows you how much money he made per month, right? And it's obviously the idea is that he's always going to make more and more and more. So this idea of always wanting to make more and more, but what we need to realize is that wanting more also comes with working more. At least most of the time it does. I'm just going to share later on a little side note on passive income, but in the traditional business, if you want more, you have to do more. You have to put in more hours. So the question really is, when do we stop? When do we take a break and just live? When do we enjoy the moment? So I've decided on my upper enough, and I'm kind of asking you, do you have an upper enough? So the side note about the passive income, of course, is that it doesn't work off the same principle, which is why I guess everybody wants to achieve success with passive income streams. And yes, it requires work and effort to put those systems into place. So let's maybe not forget that during those setting up times, it's about the journey as well, because if you don't learn to celebrate your small successes during the setup time and just take a break and live, you will always be running and trapped in that hamster wheel, running after bigger and bigger successes. So that's it for this episode of the Introvert Biz Growth podcast. I hope you found my musings about materialism and minimalism interesting. I hope it gave you some food for thought about how you look at those things. Maybe do some analyzing and see what you enjoy spending money on, and then have a look around at your friends, whether you can confirm this idea I have that the more extroverted a person is, the more they might enjoy materialistic things. I'm not saying that everybody's like that, but that's just what I've noticed with my friends. So I'd be curious to hear from you if you notice the same things. You'll find this episode show notes at sarahsantacroce.com/episode 17. And if you don't have it yet, get your free 4-step guide on how to say no to grow. And as always, if you like this episode, please subscribe to this show on iTunes or Stitcher and tell your introverted friends about it. And if you really, really liked it and would like to make just a tiny contribution to the show, I've created a page on Patreon, a site that helps podcasters and other creatives get some crowdfunding in order to fund their creation. Even just $1 per month, so 50 cents per episode, would make a difference. It's not mainly the financial support, but more the moral support that would make me super happy. Knowing that there's people out there who listen and who care enough about my show to commit to a monthly pledge, which is really make my day and keep me motivated. So if you'd like to become a Patreon, come on over to sarahsantacroce.com/Patreon. And I'll talk to you again in 2 weeks. I know it seems long, but time flies and pre-excitement is half the experience. Talk to you soon.